From his extremely controversial dating life to his hypocrisy as a climate activist, here's why Leonardo DiCaprio is so rude in real life. DiCaprio started his acting career as a child star, but what earned him worldwide recognition was his role as the tragic hero in Titanic. Since then, he's been in a number of successful movies, including The Revenant, which finally got him that much-desired Oscar. So, while his professional life has been comparatively spot-free, the same can't be said for his personal life, which has been filled with controversy. The guy likes to keep to himself, sharing very little with the general public and barely ever agreeing to give interviews. But boy, is he a source of some shady drama. The most famous of these controversies has to be the fact that he only ever dates women much younger than him. There has to be at least a decade or more of an age difference between them. I mean, what's that all about? He's been the butt of jokes about this for years now, and he doesn't seem to care either. For the longest time, no one could find evidence of a single woman he's dated over the age of 25. As if he needed to add more proof to this infamous theory, he recently broke up with his ex-girlfriend, Camila Morrone, literally months after her 25th birthday. Could he have made it more obvious? What's worse is that he first met Morrone when she was 10 and he was in his 30s. How gross. There were rumors soon after that he was getting romantically involved with Gigi Hadid, who happened to be just barely over the set point of 25. So, let's not call that progress all right. That's not all. Earlier this year, he was allegedly dating 23-year-old Victoria Lamas, after the stint with Hadid had run its course, and was then seen with a 19-year-old Israeli model, Eden Polani. Again, this caused quite a stir, to the point where DiCaprio had to speak up and deny the rumors through a close source. The source pointed out that just because they're seen sitting together doesn't mean there's anything going on, but the public isn't too convinced. In fact, DiCaprio was trolled over this by the government. Yeah, you heard that right. The official Washington State Twitter account took a jab at the fellow by making a joke about how both the Department of Natural Resources and DiCaprio doesn't harvest old growth. I mean, the joke ain't the best, but it's hard not to crack jokes when something crazy like this surfaces. I'll give them that. DiCaprio was 30 when Polani was born. His dating life isn't the only shady thing about the actor. The kind of lifestyle he lives has also invited its fair share of controversy. Don't just take my word for it. Take a look at all the parties he's thrown over the years. He's become known in Hollywood for living a party animal sort of lifestyle, with stories of his crazy partying making news from time to time. Once he was spotted leaving a Miami nightclub alongside Joe Jonas and Brandon Davis, with around 20 girls leaving the gathering at his side. This, naturally, caused quite a buzz. I mean, it was a strange sight to begin with, but with Jonas looking visibly awkward, people couldn't get over the incident. Then there are those over-the-top, expensive birthday parties he throws for himself, inviting all the big stars like Adam Levine and Russell Simmons. But instead of inviting more of his friends and colleagues, his party tends to mostly consist of super hot models. Now that's bound to raise some eyebrows. Really says something about the guy, don't you think? Years ago, he also threw an insanely luxurious yacht party with his friend Jonah Hill, which led to many rude photos from the event leaking on the internet. Maybe they got too lost in their Wolf of Wall Street personas. These pictures featured DiCaprio with his buddies surrounded by, you guessed it, a bunch of topless women. This party was supposedly only the beginning of a long string of New Year's celebrations. Another time, he invited over 80 well-known women to his party. I'm sure you can tell his obsession and fixation on models and young women is intense, to say the least. This wild lifestyle always catches up to you, and DiCaprio is no different. Once he was struck across the face by a broken glass bottle by a woman who confused him for his ex, and he had to get nearly 17 stitches. Yikes. And who can forget his notorious frat boys group, the so-called Pussy Posse, which included David Blaine, Tobey Maguire, and others. They were known to spend whole nights at clubs trying to pick up girls and not tip well. Rude. He's also had the reputation of being terrible to paparazzi photographers. He once threw grapes at them out of his hotel room, and on another occasion he threw trash at oncoming cars at the Brooklyn Promenade, which is a definite safety hazard. What was he thinking? He also threw actual horse manure at the paparazzi in the early 2000s. I mean, I get that it can get tough, but you can't treat human beings like that. One source spoke on the matter, saying he treats New York like it's his personal playground, and that his group used to set off stink bombs at Skybar. That is total snobbish brat behavior, if you ask me. Definitely not the kind of behavior you would want from an insanely famous movie star. Speaking of the movie star, his work has so far been worthy of him being deemed a star, no doubt about it. But there's been a controversy or two that he would probably wish people forgot, particularly the movies where he's trying out different accents. He's done quite a bit of work in this field, and it always ends up being either a hit or a miss. The trailer for his new movie, Killers of the Flower Moon, dropped earlier this year, and almost instantly people had very strong opinions about his acting. It seems like this time, DiCaprio's missed the mark big time yet again, as people have mocked his southern accent, calling it hilarious. Many took to Twitter to share their displeasure, saying they'll find it hard to immerse themselves into the movie, with his awful accent making his character seem totally out of place. I doubt he'll be able to sway fans when the actual movie comes out. You may remember his other failures, the most popular ones being that South African accent he did for his Zimbabwean character in Blood Diamond, or the Bostonian vocal tones he made in Shutter Island. People simply couldn't get over how cartoonish he sounded, and honestly, they weren't wrong. After being in the industry for almost 3 decades, he should have at least mastered American accents, don't you think? He sure has had some pretty major disagreements in all these years. DiCaprio has also had his brush with the law, when he and his BFF Tobey Maguire had lawsuits filed against them for allegedly not wanting to release the film Don's Plum. The film, according to him, was set to be a short film, but later the director tried to turn it into a feature film. But the producer claimed both of them carried out a false campaign to prevent the release, because the movie may not reflect nicely on them. The movie apparently had both actors doing quite a bit of improvised acting, and Maguire was afraid his parts got too personal. The movie had explicit scenes of violence and misogyny, with many scenes showing their characters threatening and humiliating women. Whatever the case may have been, the movie never saw the light of day in US or Canada. DiCaprio was also recently investigated by the FBI over his relationship with a Malaysian businessman. The person in question was involved in a big scandal that had billions of government dollars moved into the pockets of Joe Low, the alleged mastermind. DiCaprio had received multiple gifts from the man, including Marlon Brando's Oscar and $9 million painting. He came to know the guy when he starred in The Wolf of Wall Street, which was financed by Low. Funny to think the movie itself is about a convicted fraudster. He's also gotten backlash over his organization LDF, the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, one of the largest environmental nonprofits. It's the kind of charity that lets donors get a tax deduction, which is problematic in its own right, but it also has transparency issues. They're not required to disclose how all those donations are spent. He's also been called out for his hypocrisy. He supposedly cares about climate change and has spoken a lot on the issue over the years, even in his Oscar acceptance speech. But is he really environmentally conscious if he uses private jets and super yachts all the time? Think of all the carbon footprints. After all the criticisms, he once attempted to use a commercial flight. But to many, it was incredibly obvious it was all just a PR stunt to appease the critics. This just bummed out people even more. So there you have it. From his hypocrisy as a climate activist to his extremely controversial dating life, this was why Leonardo DiCaprio is so rude in real life.